Death Mage Chapter 270, The Secret Exchange Between the Great Demon King and the Alcrem Duchy. The heroic spirits, familiar spirits serving the gods who were in charge of the fighting forces, could do nothing but watch as the grand farce took place.
I didn't think that the Demon King's adaptability would be so troublesome.
One of them said, if the heroic spirits had a rank like monsters, they would be around rank 14. And each of them was capable of holding their own against a weaker evil god in single combat. There were over a dozen heroic spirits in this divine realm of the gods that were looking down upon Alcrem. If they all attacked Vandalyu with their combined strength, even Vandalyu would be unable to avoid struggling in battle against them. However, this was not the age of the gods that had long since passed, when gods and their familiar spirits resided in the world itself. In order to wield their power on the world's surface on their own, heroic spirits would need to expend a tremendous amount of energy. Thus, even if the heroic spirits were to descend upon Lambda, they would only be able to fight for a few seconds. Even if they were able to give Vandalyu a difficult battle, it was difficult to tell whether they would even be able to deal irrecoverable damage during that short time, never mind defeat him. That was precisely why, under ordinary circumstances, the correct way for heroic spirits to exert an influence upon the world was for them to descend upon heroes with the divine protections of the gods and lend them their strength. However, at this moment, there wasn't a single potential hero with the divine protection of a god of Alda's forces in Alcrem. The gods had been on alert because of Vandalyu's appearance in Morksey, one of the Alcrem Duchy's cities of commerce, and instructed the potential heroes to evacuate.
Being overly cautious has backfired. Of course, even if they were in Alcrem now, they have not been nurtured sufficiently to become vessels for us to descend upon. Even so, we wouldn't have had to let the Demon King do as he pleases and get away with all of this. It's true that he saved the people of Alcrem from Zerzorgen. I will admit that. But to fool the people he saved, and to receive their worship through fabricated lies, how is he any different from Zerzorgen? More importantly, what happened to Borgadendono? If he is still alive, there is no chance that he would overlook the Demon King's transgressions. Has his soul been devoured like Zerzorgen's after all? It is not certain that that is the case.
A heroic spirit with a spear on his back in response to this question.
It is possible that Borgadendono is alive and in support of the Demon King. What, you heretic, do you mean to ridicule Borgadendono?
Another heroic shouted, outraged.
Calm yourself. I mean to do no such thing.
The heroic spirit with the spear replied with a sigh.
However, I only knew Borgadendono through his familiar spirits, which turned out to be familiar spirits of an evil god in disguise. None of us here, including me, know the real Borgadendono. Furthermore, it is unclear as to whether Borgadendono has memories of the time that passed while he was absorbed by Zerzorgen, but if he does not, then he would know nothing of the battle between Alda, the god of law and fate, and Vida. It would not be strange for him to feel a debt of gratitude towards the Demon King who saved him, and try to repay him for that. Do you disagree?
The other heroic spirits couldn't think of any way to refute his words.
Borgadendono had extensive conversations with the fallen champion, and he is a subordinate god of Botan-sama, mother of the earth and goddess of craftsmanship, who chose Hillwillow as her champion. It is possible that they thought in similar ways.
The heroic spirit with the spear continued.
Perhaps so, then at the very least, my blade shall reveal the true identity of those puppets to the eyes of the people.
Said another heroic spirit, unsheathing his sword.
There is no use in doing that. You will simply be struck down during your descent.
The heroic spirit with the spear told him.
That is true, but are we supposed to simply leave him? If Borgadendono supports the Demon King, as you say, there is no telling what will happen if he joins Vida's forces.
The heroic spirit with the sword shouted. The heroic spirit with the spear could understand what the sword-wielding heroic spirit was saying. If Borgedon were to support Vita's faction and join them, he would not pose any threat to the forces of Alda, the god of law and fate, and his betrayal would not cause any large deficiencies in how Alda's forces were run. Disguised as Borgedon, Zurzorgen had pretended to have fallen into slumber in order to focus on protecting the seal on the evil god Forzagible, so his familiar spirits had done little other than share information. They had not played any role in maintaining Alda's forces. On top of that, the current Borgedon had only been released from Zurzorgen, so he was missing the vast majority of his power, and it was likely that his current form was like that of a dead spirit, like a condensed, conscious mass of naturally occurring mana. Thus, even if he were to become an enemy, he would not pose any direct threat to Alda's forces. However, the damage in terms of the amount of worship he received was great. Considering the world as a whole, Borgedon, the god of mountains, was not a major god. There were likely many in the neighboring Amid Empire who did not even know his name. However, he was the patron god of the capital of the Alcrem Duchy, the city of Alcrem with a population of 1 million people, where there were none who did not know of him. Borgedon also had a large political influence. For example, the title of Knight of the Collapsed Mountain, which had been passed down from knight to knight, from generation to generation. This title had originated from the myth that Borgedon had sealed away Zurzorgen and Forzagible, collapsing the surrounding mountains and creating a barren wasteland in the process. In reality, these knights had been mimic humans, and it was uncertain as to what Duke Alcrem would do with the title in the future. But, since the Duke was participating in Vandalu's farce, there wasn't any use in thinking about it. If Borgedon were to join Vita's faction, the influence on Alcrem's people would be immeasurable. Even so, the worship of the gods of Alda's forces in other duchies of the Orbam kingdom would likely remain unaffected. But the places in Alcrem where worship of the gods of Alda's forces was strong would be stolen by Vita's faction completely. Considering the actual loss, the mental damage on Alda's gods caused by this, and the fact that Vita's faction would grow in strength, this could not be described as a small amount of damage.
I understand how you feel. But even if all of us here were to combine our powers, the most we would be able to do is interrupt this puppet show. The Demon King is not the only one waiting for us down there. There is Gufudgarn, the incarnation of Vita, a countless number of the Demon King's servants, and it is highly likely that more of them will arrive as reinforcements through teleportation. Do not forget that his stronghold is not in Alcrem, but in the area beyond the boundary mountain range.
The familiar spirit with the spear reminded the others. Even if the heroic spirits were not struck down during their descent, the Demon King's forces were endless. Descending now would be equivalent to giving themselves up to become the Demon King's aftermeal dessert. The heroic spirit with the sword who was on the verge of abandoning hope seemed to understand this. He gave a heavy sigh and stepped back.
Still, how did the heroic spirits fight the Demon King's army 100,000 years ago? Even considering that Vandalu and Gujaranis are different beings, if we could learn how our predecessors fought, then we could learn something.
The heroic spirit with the spear murmured.
My master has told me,
said a heroic spirit holding a staff.
But I do not think his words would give us many hints. After all, the heroic spirits who existed in this world before the arrival of the Demon King Gujaranis were not powerful. I was told that the power they possessed was not much different from that of familiar spirits who had once been other, ordinary humans. Is that true? I do not intend to say that strength alone qualifies one to become a heroic spirit, but there are certain standards.
The heroic spirit with the spear exclaimed in surprise. Heroic spirits were those who had been respected by the people as heroes during their lifetimes, and even if they could not become heroic spirits on their own, they would become heroic spirits if their greatness was recognized by the gods. Thus, it was naturally common sense that heroic spirits were powerful. However, that was the common sense of the current era.
I said the same to my master, but he told me this.
The heroic spirit with the staff continued.
Before the Demon King Gujaranis arrived in this world, leading an army of evil gods, there were no monsters in this world, not even a single goblin. Naturally, there were no devil's nests inhabited by monsters, no dungeons, and as the people received blessings and teachings from the gods directly, they did not fight wars or kill one another. Even the status system did not exist. There was no possible way for people to become powerful as they are capable of doing now. The heroes of the time were those who were more proficient at hunting than others or those who could run faster than average. It is only natural that such people ascending to become heroic spirits would not be as powerful as heroic spirits are today.
The world had been peaceful before the arrival of Gujaranis.
Weapons and armor had been used to hunt and fish, and the status system with jobs and skills had not existed.
That was why the people had been at a heavy disadvantage against the Demon King's army before Ricklint invented the status system to strengthen the people, and the champions were summoned.
I see. In other words, individuals who are heroes among heroes, like the champion Bellwood, are necessary in order to defeat the Demon King. In that case, now is not the time.
The heroic spirit with the spear whispered. But another heroic spirit spoke up.
I have just received word. The man who has the qualities to become such a hero among heroes, Heinz, has returned.
Unaware of the heroic spirit's conversation, Vandalyu was making an eyeball glow.
It's hard to bring it into focus. This is the opposite of its intended use, after all. Yes, this is good. The luminescent organs are working.
He murmured to himself.
The enormous eyeball he was holding in his hands was emitting light and producing an image on a blank, white wall.
Wow, Van! That's amazing. It's just like the real thing.
Povina shouted excitedly.
Right, Juliana?
Yes, I feel like I'll be able to hear sounds and the people's voices any second,
Said Juliana.
I've never seen anything like this before.
Said Braga.
I want to show it to my family. Movies, amazing, amazing movies.
Said another black goblin.
They were all excitedly watching the projected image.
The footage that Vandalyu was projecting was of the grand-scale farce that had taken place that afternoon. Although Braga and the rest of the black goblins had been unable to participate in it, they hadn't said anything about it, but Povina and Juliana, especially Povina, had complained about not having been able to take part.
Thus, Vandalyu had come up with the idea of at least showing them footage of it, and was now playing this screening of it using the fragments of the Demon King.
With the perfect record technique, skill, Vandalyu was able to perfectly record everything he saw with his eyes as images, and he was projecting them using the Demon King's luminescent organs and the lens of an eyeball as a film projector.
I'll call this film projector technique, I suppose. There's color but no sound, so it feels quite old for a movie, though.
Vandalyu said. He remembered the sounds he had heard as well, but there was nothing that he could use as speakers to reproduce them accurately.
Then we'll just need to explain.
Said Darsha.
Povina Juliana-chan, this is where Bravatiyu-san said, as the leader of the 5 Knights of Alcrem, my name. What did he say again?
She was trying to describe the events that had taken place, but she quickly got stuck as she was unable to remember everyone else's lines.
Darsha-san, he's right here, so we just need to ask the man himself.
Said Privel.
Right.
Bravatiyu had been staring in disbelief at the projected film and at Vandalyu, but was brought back to his senses by Privel putting a tentacle on his shoulder.
Dee, did you say something to me?
He said, startled.
We would like you to tell Povina and Juliana what you said back then. Could we ask that of you?
Said Gizania.
I do not mind, but...
Bravatiyu said.
He nodded, but he stared at Vandalyu and the enormous eyeball that was acting as a projector for a few moments, as if hesitating.
Well then, I'll rewind the footage to before Bravatiyu shouts and sends a slashing attack at the golem playing the part of the evil god. Since I can reproduce the image, I'd like for you to provide the audio.
Said Vandalyu.
Come on.
Povina and the others said, urging Bravatiyu to say his lines.
Bravatiyu seemed to decide that he was in no position to refuse.
Back then I shouted, "Incarnation of Borgeddon, I shall aid you."
and released Skyrend towards the evil god Golem. However, my Skyrend was entirely ineffective because of that Demon King's exoskeleton, or whatever it is, and shouted, "Impossible!" my martial skill, to act as if the evil god was a powerful being.
He said loudly and clearly.
But back then, you sounded completely monotone, like you were just reciting the script. It was worse than Van's lines,
Said Keisha. Indeed, Bravitiu's acting at the time had been terrible.
It was indeed. It was a perfect example of a third-rate actor. Any ordinary person would have at least shouted melodramatically, even if it wasn't required.
Ralmaya remarked.
I'm sure you're not supposed to be conscious of the fact that you're acting. Either your nerves got the better of you despite your age and experience, or you were mentally shaken by the evil god despite knowing it was a fake.
Said Baldiria.
Ralmaya, Baldiria, you traitors, you are talking as if you are completely on their side.
Bravitiu began, outraged that his fellow knights were watching the film with a friendly attitude towards Vandaliu and his companions.
Oh look, next is the part where Sergio Dono's specialty lightning attacks were also ineffective, and his spells had little effect as well.
Said Gizania, interrupting him. As Sergio began reciting his lines, Bravitiu had no choice but to shut his mouth and fall silent.
Yeah, it's my turn, huh? I said get back, old man, then raised my spear and cast the lightning strike spell, but the evil god's surface just got burned black a little and there was no damage. I clicked my tongue and said it's no good. It's repelling both martial attacks and spells. What are we supposed to do against a guy like this?
Seeing his trusted knight's interactions with the others, Duke Alcrem stared at Vandaliu and his companions in a daze.
However, he was surprised. The film that Vandaliu had created was not so astonishing. The same thing could be accomplished with spells or magic items. With light attribute or wind attribute illusion spells, it was not difficult to project scenes from the caster's memory. Mages who created such performances were often employed at large theaters. Time attribute magic could also be used to create images of the past, although this was more difficult. With this method, sound would also be reproduced.
Magic items such as crystal balls that recorded events of the past had been made since long ago. Of course, only true masters of magic would be able to recreate scenes of the past with such detail, and even if they used all of their mana, they would not be able to project more than 30 minutes worth of footage.
As for magic items, the longer the footage they could record, the bigger the crystal balls were, and thus the cost of creating them would increase sharply.
The upper limit of their recording duration was considered to be just a little over 10 minutes.
Considering that, what Vandaliu was doing was indeed amazing. But what Duke Tackard Alcrem, Bravitiu, and Sergio were surprised about was the fact that he was doing so using fragments of the Demon King.
In the distant, ancient past, the Demon King Gujarani's body had been unstoppable by anything other than arms made of orichalcum, wielded by the legendary champions and the heroes they led. And if not orichalcum, then arms wielded directly by the gods themselves.
To the people of this world, the fragments of that body were considered to be spiritually taboo, and more importantly, extremely dangerous.
If a fragment infested a person, it would enter a frenzy and cause enormous damage to everything around it, and it would be impossible to remove from the host until they died.
Demon King equipment was made of fragments of the Demon King, and when a piece of Demon King equipment was destroyed, the fragment would infest a nearby host and destroy its surroundings in its search for other fragments, seeking to resurrect the Demon King. The Demon King fragments were such terrifying objects, and yet they were currently being used as a film projector.
It was only natural for the Duke to be dumbfounded. Although fragments of the Demon King were used in peaceful ways every day in Talishheim, it was the first such occurrence in a human society. To begin with, the very concept of using fragments of the Demon King this way would never be thought of in human societies.
At most, people would use materials created by the fragments, such as using the crystal masses that Zurzorjin released with the Demon King's crystals as materials for equipment and as alchemy ingredients.
What am I to say? I feel like everything I thought I knew is being broken down around me.
Tackard Alcrem murmured to himself.
But at the same time, he reaffirmed to himself to never make enemies of Vandalyu and his companions.
This was a decision that he had made after learning that Braga and the Black Goblins were the true, face-staring demon, and Vandalyu was the mastermind commanding them, that Juliana was the reborn form of Juliana Alcrem, and of the existence of the demon empire of Vidal, something that was more terrifying than the existence of Zerzorgin and the mimic humans.
It had been less than 5 years since he aligned his duchy with Alda's peaceful faction, but he was now aligning it with Vida's faction. It was likely that he would need to grant ghouls human rights, and once the Temple of Borgedon was rebuilt, it would need to be decorated with sculptures of Vida rather than Alda. It was likely that he would face some opposition from the nobles who supported the Alcrem house.
He didn't even want to imagine the reactions of the other dukes' houses, Marshal Dalmid or Prime Minister Turkatanis of the royal capital.
There would naturally be opposition from the Church of Alda, and it was even likely that there would be opposition from the Church of Vida as well. Most of the clergymen of the Church of Vida welcomed the peaceful faction of Alda. As a result, some of the nobles might revolt, and it was possible that those in the royal capital would decide that Duke Alcrem had lost his mind and send assassins after him. But even considering all of these dangers, Tackard would not change his mind. Compared to the risk of making an enemy of the Demon King, the great Demon King Vandalyu, the rebellions of other nobles and the danger of assassins are but a small matter, he thought. Vandalyu had created an enormous golem that was over 100 meters tall simply for the reason that it had been necessary for the fabricated show for the people.
Turning that one golem against the city would result in enormous damage.
The city's walls were several dozen meters tall, but they would be like plywood against such an enemy. Magical barriers would also be futile against the sheer, overwhelming volume of mana that Vandalyu possessed. And naturally, there was also the fact that Vandalyu's fighting forces were so overwhelmingly powerful that the entire army of the Alcrem Duchy would not be able to defeat them.
Even if Vandalyu didn't create any enormous golems. No, Vandalyu was stronger when he hadn't created any.
Of course, I owe him a debt for saving the capital. He is a virtuous enough person to have saved our city without any promise of reward. If we respond to that with sincere gratitude, it is almost certain that he will harbor more goodwill for this city and the Alcrem Duchy, the Duke thought. However, I will have to ask him to stop the face-staring demon business and have the Knight's Order act based on the information he provides. The public story was that the acts of the face-staring demon had been carried out by servants of the evil god, so it would trouble the Duke if the face-staring demon were to continue being active.
The activities of the face-staring demon also harmed the authority of the Duke's house and reduced the people's trust in the city guards and Knight's Order.
Thus, he intended to have Vandalyu and his companions provide information, and put that information to use in official investigations. It would be best to put Ralma and Baldiria in charge of that. The two of them were in complete admiration of Vandalyu, and Baldiria referred to Darsha as Goddess Sama with no hesitation, but Tackard didn't intend to do anything about that. People were free to admire and respect whoever they wanted to.
The two of them had sworn loyalty to the Alcrem house and knights, and it seemed that their loyalty had not changed.
If the object of their admiration was the emperor, a famous knight, or a general of the Amid Empire, an enemy nation, it would have been a matter of great concern. But because their admiration was directed at individuals with whom the Alcrem house would be establishing friendly relations with, it wasn't much of an inconvenience.
The Duke would have the two of them act as mediators for proactive exchange with the demon empire of Vidal in the future. The problem is the duchy's nobles, but I'm sure Earl Morksey will understand. I'll need to do some work on convincing the other nobles. The other dukes, the prime minister, and the marshal can come second.
It seems that you've been deep in thought for a while. Is something the matter?
Asked Vandalyu.
And no, nothing at all.
Tackard said hastily, jumping in surprise. However, he was under excessive stress. His face was pale, and his already thin hair looked even frailer than before.
Even Vandalyu, who was terrible at guessing what others were thinking, didn't believe him. However, Vandalyu was the only one who had been frank and revealed various secrets.
It would likely be a hasty move to use youth transformation and reverse his age.
Still, he didn't feel good about simply ignoring Tackard's state of poor health.
And if he were to suddenly collapse and perish now, he would need to start discussions all over again with a successor to the Duke's house who didn't know anything. Even if Vandalu's relationship with the duchy couldn't be made public, he wanted Tackard to remain its duke until the relationship had progressed to a point where it could be stably maintained long-term.
Take this,
Said Vandalu after some thought, producing an antenna from his forehead and using it to take out a cream-filled container from his pocket.
This is some kind of ointment, is it?
Said the Duke.
Yes, it's a medicine used in the demon empire of Vidal called V-Cream. It improves the skin, and if applied to the scalp, it promotes hair growth and restoration.
Said Vandalu.
Tackard made a surprised noise.
He had been shrinking away in fear of Vandalu's black antenna, but upon hearing the words hair grown and restoration, his eyes lit up, and he reached out and took the V-Cream. And so began the relationship between Vandalu, Emperor of the Demon Empire of Vidal, and Tackard, head of the Alcrem House of Dukes.
Cool, you're even cooler than the real one.
Said Privil's voice in the background, followed by a happy wobbling noise from Kuhul. In the scene projected on the wall, Kuhul, who had disguised himself as the Knight of the Collapsed Mountains Goldie, stopped the attacks of the golem, acting as the evil god with his own body. Now, kill it, even if you have to kill me with it, the image of Goldie shouted silently, before being turned into dust in a spectacular fashion. The day after the farce that covered up the truth, Vandalu and his companions headed for the job-changing room in Sam's carriage.
The reason for that was, of course, because his level had reached its upper limit after the previous day's battle with Zurzorjin.
It was thought that job changes should be done as quickly as possible, with the exception of some situations, such as when one was undecided on what path they wanted to take, or when there were no jobs available to change to.
Once one's level reached 100, their current job would not increase in level any further, and even if they changed to another job, the effects and bonuses to skills of the previous job would still permanently be in effect.
However, Vandalu had been tired after yesterday's performance, and he had been busy with various things after it as well.
After he took care of those things, more time had passed than he had expected, so he had gone to sleep without changing jobs.
I told you that you could go to bed if you were tired, but you insisted on staying awake until the parade was over.
Said Darsha.
You fought mimic humans and an evil god, and after that you had to control golems in the show for the people. It must have been greatly tiring even for you, Vandono.
Said Muse.
And even after that, you projected that film with film projector technique. You worked too hard yesterday.
Said Gizania.
Mom Muse, I couldn't miss seeing everyone's moment of triumph, and the film projector was just an idea I had, so I wanted to do it.
Said Vandalu.
After the battle with the evil god, Vandalu and his companions had returned to the city, and the sides of the road to the castle had been lined with people who were fanatically celebrating victory, creating a small parade. Even though the sun had gone down, the road had been lit up with light attribute magic, and with smiles and cheers, the people had welcomed back the heroes who had fought the evil god alongside the god of mountains Borgadin.
Darsha, Muse, and the others had told Vandalu to rest, but he had wanted to see the people praising them.
However, he had indeed been tired, and creating and controlling enormous golems that were over 100 meters tall had used up more mana than he had expected, so the parade had been a battle against the urge to sleep.
I am unable to find the words to thank you for all of your effort. Despite sacrificing the mountains, I failed to seal him away, and not only that, I was used by him and allowed him to get away with so much. My honor deserves to be covered in mud and buried, and yet you did so much for me.
Said Borgadin. Indeed, as a result of yesterday's farce, the people had renewed their faith and worship in Borgadin.
He had been nothing more than a soul, but he was looking considerably better now.
Don't worry about it.
Said Vandalu.
It was more convenient for us for the truth to not be spread. And if the capital of Alcrem were to descend into chaos, it would have a large negative effect on Morxie as well.
One of the 5 knights of Alcrem had actually been a monster, a mimic human who served an evil god.
On top of that, that evil god had turned out to be the Borgeddon that had been worshipped in the sacred wastelands.
If that truth was revealed, it would likely cause panic among the people. They would lose the beliefs that served as their anchors, begin baselessly suspecting that their neighbors might be mimic humans, or wonder if the gods they worshipped were actually evil gods.
Naturally, this would negatively impact the authority of the Duke's house as well.
Such a situation wouldn't be a good thing for Vandeleu.
It might be useful for Darsha's propagation of the word of Vita, but it would also be a little troublesome if the people began worshipping Vita too much, and Darsha became unable to leave the Alcrem Duchy.
The farce and fabricated lies were more convenient for Vandeleu and his companions.
Even so, I give you my thanks.
Said Borgeddon.
You could have saved yourself much trouble by simply devouring me along with Zerzorjin.
No, that's not true.
Said Vandeleu.
He's right, Borgeddon-san. I know that you've lost your power and feel disheartened, but don't abandon hope. We need you to do your best moving forward.
Said Darsha. Borgeddon seemed to be in quite a fragile state of mind.
Even though Vandeleu and Darsha offered words of encouragement while they waited for their turn outside the job-changing room, he didn't seem to be gaining much motivation.
Just then, the room's door opened. Miriam came out, apparently having finished changing jobs, and walked towards Vandeleu.
Vandeleu-san, what is the meaning of this?
She demanded.
Is something the matter? Also, we're friends, so please call me Vandeleu or Van. I don't even mind being called Vachan.
Said Vandeleu.
Is something the matter, my foot? Your divine protection has appeared on my status. What is the meaning of this? You're not only an emperor, but a god as well.
Miriam exclaimed, looking shocked and almost panicked.
Calm down, Miriam-san. I'm sorry my son surprised you like that. But he doesn't give people divine protections consciously, so there was no way to tell you in advance that he would be giving it to you.
Explained Darsha. This seemed to help Miriam regain her composure.
I see. I guess it can't be helped then. Well then, next time, it's not really something to get angry about, is it? Didn't I just do something really rude?
She said, coming to her senses and turning pale upon realizing what she had done.
Everyone gave an understanding nod, telling her not to worry about it.
Well, we should have explained properly yesterday.
Said Darsha.
It's only natural to be surprised. But the divine protection is a real divine protection, so don't worry. It's not a curse, and it doesn't have any strange effects.
Privel said reassuringly.
So stay calm.
Said Muse.
Well then, I shall explain familiar spirit demonfall to her, Vandono, so you can go ahead and change jobs first.
Incidentally, a little while after this, Arthur and the others would also be surprised to find that they had received Vandeleu's divine protection, and Miriam would end up having to explain it to them later, after hearing the explanation from Privel and the others.
Thanks.
Said Vandeleu, managing to escape Miriam's grip.
Well then, let's go right ahead.
He stepped into the job-changing room. Transformation equipment, Hollow Shadowcaster, Balor, Apollyon, Demogorgon, Great Demon King, Soul Devourer, God Devourer, Nurgle, Ravana, Shaitan, Caillou, God Spirit Mage New, Ouroboros New.
Seeing the list of jobs available in his consciousness, Vandeleu noticed 2 new jobs, God Spirit Mage and Ouroboros.
God Spirit Mage was likely to simply be the superior version of the Dead Spirit Mage job.
But Ouroboros, what was this job?
If I recall correctly, it's a symbol of eternity. Could it be related to the design that eats its own tail, since I learned cannibalism-related skills?
Vandeleu wondered. Demon King familiars were extensions of himself, so when he used cannibalism, it could be considered to be eating himself.
Well, I've already decided which job to choose this time. I select Great Demon King.
He said. If Vanelu acquired the Great Demon King job, surpassing Demon King, perhaps he would become able to control the Demon King fragments better and perhaps acquire a beautiful, bodybuilder-like physique with the Demon King's muscles.
Vanelu succumbed to the temptation of this possibility and selected the Great Demon King job. You have changed jobs to Great Demon King.
The levels of the monstrous strength, super rapid regeneration, deadly venom secretion, claws, fangs, tongue, strengthened attribute values, reigning, surpass limits, fragments, labyrinth creation, and abyss skills have increased.
Demon King has awakened to Great Demon King. Thread refining has awakened to Demon Thread refining. Bloodwork has awakened to Blood Rule. And surpass limits, fragments has awakened to transcend limits, fragments.
I awakened various skills and the levels of others increased, but I didn't hit the maximum level right away like last time.
Murmured Vanelu.
Well then, checking my skills can come later. The Demon King's muscles come first.
He raised his left arm and activated the Demon King's muscles, picturing his ideal, thick, log-like arm in his mind.
With a creaking sound, his arm split.
His muscle fibers leapt out from beneath his skin and swelled up, enveloping it.
My arm did indeed get thicker and longer, but I think it's not quite right.
Vanelu said with a sigh as he looked at his arm that had been lengthened and thickened by his bizarrely growing muscles. It looked powerful, but there was no beauty in its appearance.
Just as this thought ran through Vandelu's mind, his arm split once more, his muscle fibers branching out.
Each of them then condensed together and transformed into the ideal arm that he had pictured.
They are what I pictured, but why are they tentacles?
Vanelu wondered, looking at the 6 newly formed bodybuilder arm-shaped tentacles with his eyes half closed.
Maybe because the Demon King was a being from another world, his muscles won't take the form of the muscles of a human bodybuilder. It's doubtful as to whether Gujarani's was even a mammal after all.
Just as he gave up, he heard a notification in his head. Your level has reached the maximum level. In the end, Great Demon King had reached level 100 immediately, just like Demon King had.
After all, I do have more fragments than when I took the Demon King job. My next job, I select Vengeful Berserker.
He had thought that this job might be closely related to the Scream skill, so perhaps he would be able to add audio to yesterday's unfortunately silent film, but there weren't any further changes.
Well, if all else fails, let's just hope that there's a fragment like the Demon King's vocal cords or something.
Vanelu told himself as he left the job-changing room.
The public believed that the evil god had been sealed away, but the crystals in the wastelands had been created and left behind by him. Specialists from the Mages Guild and the various churches were scheduled to investigate them, and while they were doing that, Vanelu and his companions would be restarting their discussions and coming to agreements regarding their future relationship, the secret diplomatic relations that they would establish. A few days after that, a funeral was held for Goldie and his family, and various other functions were held, such as the bestowing of awards and announcing the construction of a new temple of Borgedin.
Thus, Vanelu and his companions' stay in Alcrem ended up being extended for another 10 days.
Name Vanelu Zakart. Race Dhampir Mother Goddess. Age 11 years old. Title Ghoul Emperor, Eclipse Emperor, Guardian of the Cultivation Villages, Holy Son of Vita, Scaled Emperor, Tentacle Emperor, Champion, Demon King, Oni Emperor, Trial Conqueror, Transgressor, Black Blood Emperor, Elder Dragon Emperor, Food Cart King, Genius Tamer, True Ruler of the Entertainment District, Patron Saint of Transformation Equipment.
Job Vengeful Berserker. Level 0.
Job History: Death Attribute Mage, Golem Transmuter, Undead Tamer, Soul Breaker, Venom Fist User, Insect User, Tree Caster, Demon Guider, Archenemy, Zombie Maker, Golem Creator, Corpse Demon Commander, Demon King User, Dark Guider, Labyrinth Creator, Creation Guider, Dark Healer, Disease Demon, Magic Cannoneer, Spirit Warrior, Bestower, Dream Guider, Demon King, Demiurge, Whip Tongue Calamity, Divine Enemy, Dead Spirit Mage, String User, Great Demon King. Attributes:
Vitality, 575,691. Increased by 202,331.
Mana, 8,514,740, 1,172, plus 76632677054. increased by 1,973,394,604 in total. Strength 58,882, increased by 15,531. Agility 52,751, increased by 13,225. Stamina 62,480, increased by 20,433. Intelligence 67,493, increased by 11,095. Passive skills: Monstrous Strength Level 6 level up. Super Rapid Regeneration Level 3 level up.
Dark King Magic Level 8 level up.
Status Effect Immunity. Magic Resistance Level 9. Dark Vision. Dark Dream Demon Creation Path Enticement Level 9. Chant Revocation Level 9. Guidance Dark Dream Demon Creation Path Level 9. Constant Mana Recovery Level 2 level up. Super Strengthened Subordinates Level 3 level up.
Deadly Venom Secretion, Claws, Fangs, Tongue, Level 4 level up.
Strengthened Agility Level 9. Body Expansion Tongue Level 10. Augmented Attack Power while unarmed. Small, awakened from strengthened attack power while unarmed.
Strengthened Body Part, Hair, Claws, Tongue, Fangs, Level 10.
Demon Thread Refining Level 1, awakened from Thread Refining. Mana Enlargement Level 9. Increased Mana Recovery Rate Level 9.
Strengthened Attack Power while activating a Magic Cannon, Very Large level up. Augmented Vitality Level 2.
Strengthened Attribute Values Reigning Level 6 level up.
Strengthened Attribute Values, Worshipped, Level 3.
Strengthened Attribute Values Demon Empire of Vittle Level 1. Self-Regeneration Cannibalism Level 1 new. Augmented Attribute Values Cannibalism Level 1 new. Strengthened Attribute Values when enveloped in a soul, Small new. Active Skills: Blood Rule Level 1, awakened from Bloodwork.
Transcend Limits Level 8 level up.
Golem Creation Level 7 level up. Hollow King Magic Level 6 level up. Precise Mana Control Level 2 level up. Cooking Level 8. Alchemy Level 10.
Soul Destruction Fighting Technique Level 5 level up. Greater Multicast Level 4 level up.
Surgery Level 8. Embodiment Level 4. Coordination Level 10. Super High-Speed Thought Processing Level 6.
Commanding Level 10. Threadreeling Level 8 level up. Throwing Level 10.
Scream Level 7. God Spirit Magic Level 2 level up. Demon King Artillery Technique Level 4 level up. Armor Technique Level 10 level up.
Shield Technique Level 10 level up.
Shadow Group Binding Technique Level 7. Transcend Limits Fragments Level 1, awaken from Surpass Limits Fragments.
Spirit Therapy Level 1. Whip Technique Level 3.
Spirit Form Transformation Lightning. Staff Technique Level 2 level up. High-Speed Flight Level 1. Unique Skills:
God Devourer Level 8 level up. Deformed Multiple Souls, awaken from Deformed Soul.
Mental Encroachment Level 9.
Labyrinth Creation Level 5 level up. Great Demon King, awaken from Demon King.
Abyss Level 10 level up.
Divine Enemy.
Soul Devour Level 9 level up. Vita's Divine Protection. Earth's Gods Divine Protection.
Group Thought Processing Level 7 level up.
Xantark's Divine Protection. Group Control Level 7. Soul Form Level 4. Demon King's Demon Eyes. Origins Gods Divine Protection. Ricklant's Divine Protection.
Zero Warn's Divine Protection.
Perfect Record Technique.
Surpass Limits Soul Level 1. Mutation Induction.
Demon King's body, merged with Demon King's crystals, sweat glands, muscles, and cnidicites. Demigod.
Curses. Experience gained in previous life not carried over. Cannot learn existing jobs.
Unable to gain experience independently. Job explanation, string user. A job that excels in allowing the user to use threads that they themselves create. It provides bonuses to a variety of things, such as sewing, weaving, combat using specialized threads, and musical performance using stringed instruments. It can be acquired by those who can create strings and possess an affinity for the death attribute.
Job explanation, Great Demon King.
A job that can be acquired by those who possess the Demon King, skill and fragments of the Demon King, and have previously acquired the Demon King job. Overall, it is the same as the Demon King job, but it generally provides bonuses to more Demon King-like things, such as the mutation of living creatures and the creation of monsters and dungeons.